Going into week 6 of the college football season this weekend, I think most people could agree. We looked at the schedule, we saw the games, and nothing really jumped off the page to us. There was only one ranked on ranked matchup, and we'll get into that one in a minute of the three I'm going to talk about. Nothing really kind of jumped out at us. There were some potential good games. New matchups, that we hadn't seen before because of new teams and conferences and things like that. But there wasn't just a hard and fast big conference, long standing rivalry game that everybody was going to be glued to. So looking at that in retrospect, it's not surprising that we had one of the biggest upset weekends that probably college football has ever had. Um, what, six or seven top 25 teams lost to either, one to a lower ranked opponent, but all the others lost to unranked opponents. And I think that's what's really remarkable. It's not the fact that we had all these ranked on ranked matchups where, the lower ranked team beat the higher ranked team. We had ranked teams getting beat by unranked teams. Um, and a lot of them, like I said, in the entirety of the top 25, there were six or seven. In the top 10, there were probably four or five. And I think I'm pretty close on that from what I could really tell. But the three that I wanted to go over and talk about were ones that really stuck out. And the whole thing started yesterday morning in College Station with number 9 Missouri taking on number 25 Texas A&M. Now here's the thing: what was going to be the upset? And I talked about this earlier in the week. Missouri's ranked higher, but Texas A&M was favored. So how are you looking at this? Would it be an upset if Missouri lost because they were ranked higher, or would it be an upset that A&M lost because they were actually favored? I was in the first camp, and even if I would have been in the second camp, I would have switched because yes, in my prediction video, I did predict A&M to win this game, not necessarily the way they won it. Texas A&M was completely dominant start to finish. I don't think Missouri was ever in this game. Even with some of the weird officiating calls, and I'm not going to get into that. Y'all know my thoughts about officiating, but even with some of the weird calls, Missouri just wasn't ever really in this one. The Missouri head coach spent most of the first quarter running up and down the sidelines screaming at the officials. When he really should have been calling better plays, especially doing something about his offensive line. Texas A&M won the lines of scrimmage on both sides the entire game. A&M sacked Brady Cook 6 times, and I'm going to talk about this kind of point in another game later. I don't care who your quarterback is. I don't care how good he is. I don't care what team he plays for. You show me a quarterback that gets sacked that many times in a game, and I'll show you a quarterback that's got it in his head. After that second or third or fourth sack, every time they take a snap, they're going to be looking over their shoulder like, okay, where are they at? They're not protecting me. They've already sacked me. Where's the next sack coming from? And if a quarterback's worrying about that, they're not worrying about where that ball is fixing to go or where that handoff is fixing to go. Missouri only had 254 yards of total offense the entire game. That ain't going to win you a lot of games either. And it surely didn't win them that game yesterday. So A&M gets the win at home over Missouri. You know what? It's not personal, my deal with Missouri, but I'm not high on them. I never have been. They've got good. They've got good players. Brady Cook is a good quarterback. I like him. I like Luther Burden III. He is a good receiver. But where was Luther Burden? I mean, he had one good play in the first half that was for a lot of yardage, but where was he the rest of the game? So you got to wonder, did Missouri start panicking and get so far off of their game plan that they ended up in a game plan that didn't even include him? So I don't know what happened with that. But yeah, Missouri goes down, takes a really ugly looking. Missouri just didn't lose that game. They lost it kind of ugly. Like I said, Missouri was ranked number 9. What are y'all's thoughts? Where's Missouri going to fall? I've heard everything from Missouri's going to fall to 12 or 13 to Missouri's going to completely fall out of the top 25. The reaction so far from some of these games that I've seen online and just from some people I've talked to have been legendary. This weekend of college football is not going to be forgotten anytime soon. Anytime soon. I don't predict we're going to have another weekend of games like this for a long time. And in a lot of cases, that's a good thing. But the second game, the one that really caught the nation's attention, the college football world's attention, because it caught us all by such a big surprise, was the Vanderbilt win over Alabama. Of course, Alabama goes to Nashville, ranked number one, and from what I could tell, there were more Alabama fans in the stadium than there were Vanderbilt fans. And Vandy ends up getting the win, 40-35. Now, why did Alabama win this game? A couple of different reasons. All of them could be right. None of them could be right, but it's really fun to talk about. Alabama, the one of the possible things that I'm hearing about Alabama, and if this is true, it's a problem. It's a bad problem. It's a problem that screams we've got several more losses coming this year. Did Alabama prepare from the end of last season when Saban retires, Kalen DeBoer is announced the head coach, and they see the schedule and they see Georgia on the schedule for last weekend of September? Was their entire plan, was their entire preparation for that game and that game alone? Were they playing this entire season to beat Georgia last weekend? Because they did. Hey, Georgia comes in, night game, ESPN, and everything that goes with it, and Alabama gets the win. Then they go to Nashville the week after that and get beat by Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had never beaten a top 5 team in program history. Vanderbilt, for those of you that are college baseball fans, and I am too, Vanderbilt has several college baseball World Series national titles. This just eclipsed that. The Vanderbilt regular season win over Alabama, 40-35, on a Saturday afternoon in October, in a stadium that was dominated by Alabama fans, just eclipsed every World Series Vanderbilt ever won. It's that big of a deal to them. But getting back to the reasons why, like I said, there's 100 of them. No, I'm not even going to try to go over all of them. But the one that really stuck out with me, and when I saw this, I didn't really think I was reading this correctly. I've got an old saying, kind of an old idea that y'all probably heard before. You can't win a ball game if you can't score points, and you can't score points if your offense doesn't have the ball. Time of possession. Time of possession in a 60-minute game. Alabama had the ball 17 minutes and 52 seconds. Just a few minutes more than a quarter. Vanderbilt had the ball for 43 minutes and 8 seconds. Now, if you would have told me that there was a college football game played between Team A and Team B, don't even tell me who the teams are. There was a college football game played between these two teams. One team had the ball offensively for 43 minutes. We'll do a little bit of rounding magic. The other team had the ball offensively for 18 minutes. I would have told you that the team that had the ball offensively for 43 minutes probably beat the other team 35-0, 42-0, maybe 42-3, 45-7, something like that, in that neighborhood. Nope. Vanderbilt still wins the game, but not by the margins you would expect. But then again, it is Vanderbilt. They, obviously, they don't. I'm not talking bad about Vanderbilt. They are who they are. They don't have the best skill players in the SEC. They don't have pretty much anything that you would consider is the best in the SEC, except their grit, will, and determination, because they smelled blood in the water at the beginning of this game when I think they jumped out like 13-0 or 13-6, something like that. And then that was it. Alabama kind of made a charge, coming back a little bit at the end of the game, trying to salvage what they could. But I think by that time, the damage was done. It was too late. They basically looked up because they hadn't been paying attention the entire game because their heads weren't there. They looked up about halfway through the third quarter and goes, "Oh, we're in a ditch on this one." And by then it was too late. There wasn't anything they could do about it. So Vanderbilt, hey, congratulations to them. And coming from a Tennessee fan, hey, congratulations, little brother. Y'all needed it. Y'all deserved it. We'll see you in November and see how that one shakes out. Perfect segue into the next one. The number 4 Tennessee lost to Arkansas, which it goes without saying nobody saw this coming. But if you're Tennessee, if you're a Tennessee fan, I'm talking to the Tennessee fans out there. If you're completely honest with yourself, did we deserve this and did we need this? Um, no team deserves or needs a loss, but from a mental standpoint and from a coaching standpoint, as far as the product that we've been putting on the field, did was this almost necessary to show us some things that seriously need to be improved upon before Florida next week? Who, yes, it's not going to be that tough, but Florida next week, Alabama the week after that, and then Georgia in November. Let's go over a couple things. Penalties. Oh my God, Tennessee was penalized 10 times for 63 yards. That offensive lineman that came back after missing 2 weeks. Last week was the off week, and he was hurt for the Oklahoma game. He had a false start every chance he got. Now Arkansas had this weird shift that they would do on their defensive line, and it pulled him off just about every time. He had at least two uh, false start penalties against him. So when you're starting a drive, 1st and 15, behind your own sticks, and it's becoming, the norm in the game, problems. But that isn't going to get you very far. You're going to have some issues. One of my lights went out. Anyway, and the offensive line protection. Talked about it in the Missouri game. Nico was sacked 4 times last night. He was sacked twice against Oklahoma. That's going to get in your head and it's going to stay there. When your quarterback is worried about where the next sack is coming from, he's not thinking about where the next pass is going to go or how he's going to get the next handoff to the next receiver going. And talking about handing off to receivers and passing the ball. The big concern, the big complaint that I've seen so far online and again from people I've talked to, the play calling. They're calling it bad play calling, safe, conservative play calling, and nobody likes it. It's not what we have been accustomed to seeing from a Josh Heupel offense go ahead and say the last 2 years of this year so far and last year. Um, whether it served us, whether it was super effective for us or not, um, they're not buying it. They're not. People aren't liking it, and I'm not either. And why? Why be so safe and conservative? Are you trying to protect Nico because there are problems along the offensive line that haven't just clearly shown themselves yet, but they're there. So you're protecting your quarterback. Hey, if it's a situation like that, then it is what it is. Obviously, regardless of whether that's the reason or not, we need serious improvement along that offensive line. But because Nico is getting pressure, even when they're not sacking him, they're pressuring him, forcing him into runs, and he's scrambled. Now, there are times where he's had all day, and it's like a either or thing. Either they're getting to him, sacking him, pressuring him, or you can run out the clock with the pocket that he's got, with the protection that he does have. So I don't want to say that we've got a bad offensive line that plays bad all the times, but there's some inconsistencies there that are becoming an issue, especially when he's taken multiple sacks in multiple games like this. One good thing I will talk about though is our defense. Our defense is good. They stood up last night. At halftime, we were losing 3-0. Our defense had several really good goal line stands in the first half that kept Arkansas out of the end zone and got us to halftime with only them kicking a field goal. Here's the thing. That's all fine and great, and it's good for a little while. It's not good for 4 quarters, especially when your defense isn't getting takeaways and pick sixes, which didn't happen. Now, do they have the ability to do that kind of thing? Yes, they've done it several times this year. But if your defense is not scoring the points and your offense isn't scoring the points, your defense isn't going to win you the game right there by themselves. Um, yeah, like I said, they were good, but yeah, you've got to know that at a point, after a while, you're going to wear them out, and you're not going to get the same consistent play from them for 4 quarters, and it's eventually going to show itself. Even like I said, with a defense as good as ours, when your offense isn't playing up to that level, and it's they're not playing complementary football, here you go. You get a 19-14 loss. It wasn't a blowout. It's not like Arkansas dominated us, but they had times where Arkansas, they were able pretty much to run the ball at will. Their quarterback got banged up a little bit at the end, and it kind of slowed their game plan down because Arkansas's offensive game plan relies heavily on their quarterback. And when they didn't have him, it kind of showed. But then they put in a true freshman. He kind of sputters a little bit, but they go down the field, and he ends up scoring a touchdown. Defense is just worn out by then. It was the end of the game. Of course, it didn't help that both McCoy and Thornton went down with injuries. Hopefully, we'll have those guys back soon, especially with the games that we've got coming up. And Nico, you know what? I'm not hard on Nico. I'm not criticizing the guy in any way. But last night, for the first time in 6 or 7 games, he looked like a freshman. That's all there is to it. He looked like what he is, a freshman. I'm not criticizing that guy one way or another. I don't know what the relationships are with the coaching staff on the sideline for last night. I don't know what it was like last night. I don't know what those conversations looked like. Don't want to know. That's between coach and player. But for the first time since we've been watching this guy play quarterback for Tennessee, he finally looked like a freshman. He looked uncomfortable. He looked bothered. He looked nervous. I'm not gonna. I don't want to go as far as to say the moment got to him, but the crowd was into that game as we said they would be. Everybody that knew anything about anything that was going on knew that Arkansas was going to show up for this game, and they did. Their fans did. Um, did that get to him too? On top of the 4 sacks, and now he's looking for, you know, defenders coming at him. Like I said, if he's looking for where his next sack is coming from, he's not looking for where to throw the ball. And the sacks, him being nervous, um, and that part of it getting in his head, and then just the weird play calling that I don't understand. I'm not in this camp that's just going to jump in and be like, oh, terrible play call and fire the coach. Nope, but we're not going back to those days. Please don't take us back to those days. Josh Heupel is a good coach. He is a good play caller, but I don't understand some of his decisions here lately. I think y'all can all agree it was one hell of a weekend of college football. And good games coming up next weekend. Tennessee gets Florida at home, and I think Alabama has South Carolina. South Carolina really kind of fell apart against Ole Miss. I was expecting a little more out of them, but I predicted Ole Miss to win that game, and they did. The only thing I got wrong on that one was the line. Ole Miss was favored by 9, and they covered, but we'll see. We'll see how that looks, especially after the beating that Alabama took. But y'all have a great weekend. Thank you for checking out the video, listening to me ramble about stuff that probably didn't make any sense. But we'll be back sooner than later when the next AP poll comes out, and we'll give a little bit of reaction to that. But until next time, y'all have a great weekend.